First, I want to welcome Leadership Granbury in the junior leadership class. We've got a great program in Leadership Granbury. We thank y'all for carrying the ball forward, you leaders this year. And y'all may not know it, but they're doing City Hall today and the sewer plant and water treatment plant and touring the city. So they're going to leave here at some point this morning before we get through, I bet. But I wanted to give them a shout out. You know, we've got a lot of people that are here that had a lot to do with this. This is a big day for Granbury. Y'all been talking about, I say y'all because I wasn't here 20 years ago, but y'all been talking about this a long time, and I think Nen's going to talk about that a little bit here in a second. But I would like to recognize somebody that the city hired early on in this project, and his name is Gary Hawkins. And Gary was very instrumental. There you go, Mr. Pickleball. So Gary retired and plays pickleball every day, and we brought him off the pickleball court to be here this morning. He's saying hurry up, he's got to go. But y'all may not know, but Gary used to be the aviation guy in Sugarland when they did their big project. And so him moving to Granbury was a treasure trove for us, and his contributions towards this project have been huge. And we want to thank you publicly for all you did to get us to where we're at today, Gary. Thank you very much. And as soon as Gary retired, he said, "Here's the guy you need." I hired him, and he was working part-time, and Pat Stewart was right there ready to take over the project. And where are you, Pat? I'd like to say thank you to Pat. I'm going to turn the program over to him in a little bit, but thank you, Pat, for doing a great job. Not only has he ran the airport, but he's been the project manager for the city on this project, and he's done a tremendous job. And I can't tell you how many millions of dollars he's been able to work and save the city on the expenses and negotiating special things like who knows how much that rock's going to cost, and he negotiated and saved us about $500,000 on just the rock removal contract. So there's $1 million worth of other savings somewhere else, but you know, his project management skills have been awesome in this time, and we really do thank you for all that. So, and you know, I want to recognize our airport board. They're a bunch of volunteers that have been with this project since its inception. Many of them have been continuous servants on that board, and they've provided the advice and the expertise and just worked together as a team and have provided the city council pertinent information to help them make good decisions. Some of you guys that are on the airport board, would you raise your hand so we could recognize you? Thank y'all. Really appreciate you. Y'all made a huge difference for us. And we look forward to what's coming, and y'all are a big part of what's coming next, and Pat will kind of talk about that stuff. I also want to recognize the GTV crew that we have here, a bunch of volunteers videoing this, making this a record moment, and where we can go back and look at it later and review it. But you know, what's really been good for us are the city councils in the past, and the city councils that we have that have voted to appropriate the funds, to receive the grant funds, all the details that go into that. We couldn't have done this without the vision of the city councils, and it goes way back, and I think Nen's going to talk about that again in a minute. I would like to recognize Carrie Campbell. She's here with us from she used to work for TxDOT. She's retired, and she's sitting up here on the front row with the Hawkins. And thank you so much. She was the grant coordinator that put all this together. I don't know if you realize it or not, but we got about $16 million worth of grant money to help us with this. And Carrie was very instrumental in carrying that ball forward. The former TxDOT director, Dave Fulton, worked with us tirelessly for over a decade to help pull this thing together. And Gary would always go play golf with Mr. Fulton at those conferences, and always, you know, kind of patted him on the back and made sure he was happy. And so that was part of Gary's job, so it worked out really well. At this time, I would like for our former mayor, Nan Hewlett, to come join me. Where are you at, Nan? Come on over here. But before I give you the microphone, I want to thank you for your leadership. I remember standing before the city council in 2016, making a presentation that was very difficult. There were threatening accusations, concerned about would I bet my job on this project? And I said, absolutely. And so Nen stood right there with me through it all. Supported the entire council in the actions. By the way, it was a unanimous decision to accept the grant funds. It was a unanimous decision to appropriate the money, to borrow the additional funds, to move the substation, to move the power lines, to move the mountain of rock, and to do all the work that had to be done. So thank you for your leadership.
Well, thank you, Chris. And you know, Chris, he described a whole lot of things I was going to talk about, but he told me I only had 5 minutes to talk. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that in 5 minutes to talk about all that. I do want to recognize, though, some of the prior councilors here. Raise your hand if you were out there about 30 years ago or whatever, or even 20. There's some prior councilors. We have Mickey Parsons, Lisa Johnson out there. Those people had the vision. They started this thing out, and you know, if it wasn't for their vision and their start, you know, when I first got on the council, I took Lisa Johnson's spot there. She stepped down, and that was the council seat I took. And she told me, she said, do not let that airport get away from you, Ned. And I said, well, you got it, Lisa, you got it. And, you know, I didn't know what that took, but it was like Chris talked about, when you talk to the people in the community, it's kind of like a park and a library and things like that. People say, you know, I don't use that airport. I don't want. So it really wasn't a campaign tool. You didn't want to throw that out there and say, hey, I'm going to build an airport out there, because, you know, there's a lot of people says, what? We don't need another airport. But this airport, the vision that they had is what it would do for Granbury, what it would bring to Granbury, and that's happening right now before we even got the runway completed. But it's going to bring economic development. It's going to bring, you know, one of our biggest tools out here is tourism. And it's going to increase the tourism. It's going to bring more people to Granbury, but it's also going to bring some businesses out here. And those businesses, I talked to many businesses, being on the council for over 10 years, I talk to businesses, well, we'd love to come to Granbury, but you don't have an airport that will bring our VIPs in here, or this and that. And we have that now. We've taken those excuses out, not that that's what our airport's all about, but it's a quality of life for this community too, to have a super airport like this, and it's not done yet. I mean, we've got a lot of things in the planning for what we're going to do now that we've got the runway, and it's just going to be super to have this airport here. And I'm so blessed to be a part of it. It's kind of like running a relay race. You hand the baton off to somebody else and the leadership, and I'm glad that baton didn't drop. And Pat, thank you for taking this thing across the finish line, because that's what it took. So I'm gonna do like my wife tells me to do one of these, you know, and hand this thing over to the mayor of Granbury, Jim Jarrett. You know, when he got on board, that's here again. Don't let this airport get away from you, Mr. Jarrett, and he's done that also. So Jim Jarrett, let's stand right here.
Stand down here. We got a couple of microphones going.
Great. This is one of those occasions where you come late to the party, and it is a wonderful party because of the people that put it all together. And I keep listening. You know, I hear about Pat, and I hear about the council that was here, certainly Nen, but nobody has really mentioned Mr. Chris Kaufman. I think you did. Do not think for a minute that that I'm not very cognizant, and I think others are, of the shoulders that you stand on to get to this place. And I have stood on some very, very tall shoulders, some very broad shoulders, and I am delighted to be here with all of you, because I know that each of you had an interest in this facility for way, way longer than even I've lived here, and that's 18 years. So this is a great moment. I want you to enjoy the moment. I certainly want you guys that have put, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then thank you for all that you did, because you did absolutely keep this baton and hand it off, make sure it happened. So, I'm going to leave you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank Mr. Ledbetter for opening up this hangar and letting us utilize this fantastic facility. This is only half of it. The other half is over there. It's just incredible. Do we have our folks from TxDOT here? At this time, I would like to ask our TxDOT Aviation Division Director, Dan Harmon, to come and bless us with his, number one, his presence, and then some advice and encouragement. Thank you so much for all you've done to help us with this.
Thank you. I don't know if blessing with my presence is exactly the right term most folks would use. But thank you very much for having me here. You know, the two best parts in my mind of a project are when you actually start turning dirt for the first time, then when you get to come and see it done at the end and turn it over to the folks that are going to be using it. You know, I took over, you know, in the end stages of this project, but you know, this has been the successful culmination of the local community, the airport management, the consultant communities, the contractors, you know, TxDOT, and it really, you know, makes you feel good when we see a completion of a long-term project like this that has so much value to the community come to fruition, and we're happy to be a part of that. You know, we know that there was a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of heavy lift that had to be done, whether it was, you know, on the administrative and the planning side, but also on the construction side, and actually, you know, the kind of challenges that we're facing in the project along the way. But, you know, we're really happy to be here and part of the team to make this happen. We know this is an important part of the community, and look forward to doing more projects in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Appreciate you coming. At this time, I would like to ask our advisory board chairman, Jackie Vaughn, to come and share a few comments or thoughts. And he's got a notebook, so I'm here as long as you need me, but somebody else might need to.
Just trying to look as distinguished as you are, that's all. Thank you for allowing me to say just a few words. Some of us that have been associated with this airport the past 20 more years, today has been a long time coming, has already been discussed. There's been a lot of proverbial thunderstorms and headwinds along the way. I was going to say today was going to be this was all going to, you know, come into a beautiful VFR day, but we don't necessarily have that yet, but it's not going to stop the runway from not opening. Today, the flight plan for construction has been closed, and the NOTAM to carry Golf Delta Juliet, which is our call sign identifier, into the future, and has been posted as 0119, and that will be effective here shortly. On behalf of the Airport Advisory Board, I wish to say thank you to all that's here, and some that have been associated from times past, has been already mentioned. The advisory board has been recognized already, but I would just like for you, when I call your name, raise your hand so that people can put a name associated with you. First one is Andy Rash. He's been involved with this for 25, 30 years. Rick Huber, standing over here. Lon Wimberly, it's over here to the right. Ron Stowell, he's in the back there. Larry French, he's here somewhere. Buster Offit couldn't make it today. At least I haven't seen him. John Roberts, John's over here. And then John Kurtner, he was out directing traffic. Our members bring a diversified grouping of amazing talents and aviation experience. It's been a pleasure to serve with them. 20 years ago, this facility was called just an airport. It was just an airport for aviation enthusiasts. Today, it has grown into a vital part of our city's economic growth potential for the future. It is now commonly known throughout North Texas and Oklahoma as the best little airport in Texas. And the reason for that is customer service. It's second to none. The customer service here is just so great. I've had friends come up to me that didn't even know I was associated with the airport, but they knew I lived in Granbury. And they've talked about either they had come in and experienced what they get here at Granbury, or some of their friends have. And there's a lot of stories about that, all good, but I just don't have the time to talk about that. But Mayor Jim Jarrett, current and past city council members, previous mayor Nan Hewlett, city manager Chris, and past airport manager Gary Hawkins, and our current airport director Pat Stewart. None of this today could have been accomplished without your support, and that's already been documented. But I'm going to have to say one more thing about Pat Stewart. Pat doesn't know I'm going to say this, but he may not let me speak again, but we're not going to have another new airport either, another new runway. No one short of those within city management, TxDOT Aviation, and our board will ever know just how critical a role Pat has played the last 3+ years. As already been stated, there's been cost increases, product increases, inflation, and he had to do all of this with a set number of dollars. And the old phrase, taking a lemon and making lemonade, that's pretty well what Pat's been able to do. And Pat, I just, we've seen you work on a day-to-day basis. We will see shortly, and what you've done has surely been an amazing feat of managerial magic. And so, Pat, the board thanks you as well. To the city of Granbury, thank you for allowing this board to be a part of today's history and tomorrow's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate you. At this time, I would like to ask Carrie Campbell, a longtime TxDOT Aviation grant coordinator. I don't know what they called you, director of grants, funding lady. Yeah. And I want y'all to just know that she's a former county judge from Moore County, and that's where I met her, up in the Panhandle. So thank you for coming.
My pleasure. It really is my pleasure to be here this morning. This is super exciting. For 13 and a half years, I worked for TxDOT Aviation Division, and for 13 and a half years, this project was in the making. Something was going on. Lots of turnover in leadership at the aviation division, lots of turnover in leadership at the city, and I've got to give it to the city of Granbury. Your resolve to set a goal, have a vision, set the goal, and see it through is to be commended. So to all of you, I drove in last night, and you drive through downtown Granbury, and you see pride. You see pride of ownership in this community, and this airport is a part of that as well. So in 2017, the Aviation Division did an economic impact study, and in 2018 dollars, this airport was, I think, $18.5 million in economic impact. Don't know what those numbers would be today, but I'm encouraged to see the future build out of the airport, where the city takes the airport, and how those numbers increase in the years to come. Best of luck, congratulations, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. We've got our engineering team with KSA here. We got Chad Pinnell and Michael Melanie with us. Thank you all for coming. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Pat to let him give some statements and some future visions of what's going on here. And listen, we've got growth coming at this little airport, the best little airport in Texas. And Pat's going to tell us a little bit about it. Thank y'all for investing in Granbury, those that are here that are looking forward to breaking ground. And then I'm going to let Pat finish this out, but before I hand up the mic, I grew up in West Texas, up in the Panhandle, and I'm kind of an ag guy, so I understand agriculture. And so I want to use this analogy. What the city and the state has done with this project is like planting a wheat crop. Now we're going to water it, and we're going to watch it produce a harvest for our community. So I want you to think about that as you leave here today, is we're planting seeds for the next generations. And what an incredible opportunity that we've had that we didn't squander, we didn't waste. We seized the moment, and we were able to be effective and get it done. And with great partnerships, leveraging dollars. And the people that we bought land from, they fought us. But at the end of the day, they were happy. They got what they wanted. And we had to go through a hard time just to get the land for this thing. So those were all done over the decade, So anyway, at this time, I'll turn it over to Pat, and let's watch for the harvest here.
Thank you, Chris. Well, this was a plan that didn't work out, because I put the agenda together and I left my name off of it. Just a couple of loose ends I want to tie up with a few other people that have helped with this. We identified the previous airport advisory board, but there's been lots of people along the way help me with this project. I know Mark Zimmerman's standing over there. There's other people around here that helped with it as well, so I wanted to recognize them. And then the other person that I wanted to recognize probably wants to lock the door on his office, because as we went through this project, I was in there every day. I'd say, hey, Michael, I need 5 minutes, and 2 hours later, I'd leave. So, Michael Ross. Thank you, Michael. Michael is our assistant city manager. So just where are we going? I think most people know. In fact, we have some poster boards up here. We're out for bid right now on a new terminal building and the new entrance, which is Archer Court off of 377. By the 10th of this month, we should know where we're at financially and be able to talk to council and make a decision. So that's coming very quickly. Chris mentioned some of the growth, and I think Nin did as well, that's already happening. We have a plan, a 5 and a 10 and a 15-year master plan for this airport. And I can tell you that where we're at right now is probably closer to year 5 than year 1, because of all of the people who have already started coming to Granbury. Several of them are sitting in this room today. We have people that are going to build lots of hangars. There's a company that there are 3 people involved in building 60 T hangars here. We've got about 78 today. So if you can imagine 60 T hangars full of airplanes buying fuel, you can just see the economic impact just with that one item. There is another company, that's the 3rd airplane back there belongs to them. That is Chasing H Charters. They want to come to Granbury. They've already had their executives and senior company owners in my office with Lance and I talking about what the future looks like here for them, and what they're wanting to do is to actually build a hangar bigger than this one next door to the new terminal building, and they want to bring a charter airline to Granbury, Texas. So no contracts have been signed. We're still in the due diligence discussions, but I can tell you it's a very promising opportunity. Chasing H people, raise your hand. I know there's a couple of you in here. Yep, there they are in the very back. So Robert Anderson, Billy Kleine, Ted Hutto, those guys are all wanting to build a bunch of T hangars. They're sitting right over here, and Ted's around here somewhere. There's Ted. So, I have another company out of Oklahoma City that called me on the phone a few days ago and said, you know those 14 hangars we talked to you about? Yes, sir. We don't want to do that. Which, for a second there, was a big letdown. He said, we want to build 20. So the picture that I'm trying to paint here is not a picture where we have a bunch of contracts signed, we're ready to go, because we don't have those yet. But what we have is a huge amount of interest in people who want to come to Granbury, want to have businesses on this airport, and the economic development, as Kerry talked about a minute ago, is going to be off the chart. I think the next study, Dan, the next TxDOT study is due in about a year. Is that right? Yeah, so it's been almost 10 years since the last one, and that one was $17+ million a year in economic development to the city of Granbury and Hood County. And you know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I bet it's 3 or 4 times that 18 months from now when we get the next study, just because of this new runway and where we're going. So, you know, I told somebody earlier this morning, we're from a committed standpoint, not contractual, but committed standpoint, we've got about 70+% of the future. You know, people are already here wanting to negotiate those opportunities. So thrilled with that. It's keeping us really, really busy, but you know, it's happening. And every time somebody comes in my office, I'll send Michael and Chris a note, and I'll tell them about the opportunity. And I just say one line down at the bottom. It just says, "If you build it." Thank you.
How do you want to transition next?
Oh, let me say one more thing. I'm sorry. We normally would have transitioned out to the airplanes. We wanted to take some of those people who have helped us with this project along the way for the first ride, the first takeoff. What time is it? It's 9:10, so the airport does not officially open for another 20 minutes. So it was commissioned by the FAA at 4:01 Zulu time. Zulu time is Greenwich Mean Time, which is what we use in the aviation world, which was 11:01 a.m. yesterday, so last night. The airport is officially commissioned and opened, but I have it closed until 9:30 so that we can do this event. So unfortunately, the ceiling today is not looking good. None of you guys are suggesting we fly, right? It's the pilot in command that makes that decision, and they're shaking their heads no. So I knew the answer before I asked. So unfortunately, the weather's not gone in our favor, but feel free to walk out on the ramp, take a look at those airplanes. Those are just a small piece of the future.
So one last thought is, the last time I was at this airport and we were having an event, it was called the Balloon Festival, and there were a group of balloons, and there were 2 that said, "Yeah, we'll take you up." The others said, "No, we're not going up." We should have listened to the others, because the mayor and I and a couple of council members crash landed, and we survived. So that was my one and only flight. So when the pilot says we're not going, I'm listening to him. Y'all mingle around and enjoy the facility. Hang on, Pat's got something else.
I'm sorry, I missed the most important thing. Chuck just reminded me. We are going, for those who want to, we are going to walk out to the connector between the old runway and the new runway in the chambers here. We're going to do an official ribbon cutting for the facility. Thank you.
The most important thing, cut the ribbon.